It's grammar time! Yay! Part 2. And today you'll be learning about or reviewing relative clauses. So we're going to be looking at what are relative clauses, the three main types of relative clause, and how to use them. So if you're ready, get a pen and paper and take some notes. Hello, my name is Tanya Meyer and I'm an English as a foreign language teacher to adults. And in this video, you'll learn everything you need to know about relative clauses. Remember to click the subscribe button and invite the bell to be notified every time I upload a new video, which will be relevant to you if you're looking to overcome that intermediate learning plateau and become proficient in English. Okay, so let's get started. Look, for the longest time, I really didn't understand what grammar was or how it could be helpful. And I think that by just starting there and explaining that grammar basically means a categorizing system that helps us identify different ways in which language is used, then we can really make use of it because it isn't something like separate from language. It's something that helps us organize language, and because our minds work in such a way that if things are easy to find, then we're more likely to use them, then we can see the value of at least learning a little bit more about certain grammar structures. So that said, let's explain what relative clauses are and when we need them. So a clause, let's start with what a clause is. A clause is a dependent part of a sentence. That means it cannot exist on its own. It's not a single word. It's a part of a sentence. And relative clauses are parts of sentences that give us more information about whatever we're talking about. And this information can be essential, which means that whoever we're talking to needs this information in order to understand what we're talking about, or non-essential, which means that it's extra information about whatever we're talking about. And then the third type of clause is a reduced clause. So that's when we skip some of the elements that we need to create a relative clause and we're able to produce a reduced version. Okay, so let's start with the essential type, and these are called defining relative clauses. Remember that these are essential parts of whatever we say because whoever's listening to us needs this information in order to understand what we're talking about. And in order to create them, we need relative pronouns. Relative pronouns include which, that, who, whose, when, and where. Okay, so these are the relative pronouns that are going to locate the clause for whoever is receiving the information. And remember that this information is essential. It's necessary for the listener or the reader to understand what, who, when, where we're talking about. So for example, those are the people who saw the art gallery. The people who saw the art gallery won't forget it. That's the company that manages the art gallery. The company that manages the gallery sells fine art. She's the designer that came up with the logo. The designer that came up with the logo is amazing. So as you can see here, in all of these sentences, we need the clause to understand what we're talking about. I cannot just say, these are the people. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. What am I saying? I'm saying these are the people who saw the gallery. The people who saw the gallery won't forget it. I cannot say the people won't forget it. because what does it refer to? I need to say the people who saw the gallery. So who saw the gallery is the relative clause. Yeah, so that manages the gallery is the defining relative clause. It defines what the company that I'm talking about does. So the relative pronouns who, which, and that can be both the subject and the object in a sentence. In the examples that I just gave, they are the subject of the sentence. These are the people who saw the gallery. After the relative pronoun who is the verb saw, because the who refers to the people, the subject of the sentence. These are the people who saw the gallery. The people who saw the gallery won't forget it. So who refers to the subject of the sentence. In that case, the pronoun needs to be included. So I cannot say, these are the people saw the gallery. I must include the pronoun who. The same with the other sentences. That's the company which manages the gallery. I cannot say, that's the company manages the gallery. I must include the relative pronoun which. Why? Because the pronoun refers to the subject of the sentence. Okay? But when the relative pronoun is followed by a subject and then a verb, then it is the object of the sentence and we can omit the relative pronoun. For example, these are the people who we showed the gallery to. So here, these are the people who we showed the gallery to. So the people now are not the subject of the sentence. They are not the ones performing the action. We are the ones performing the action. We showed the gallery to who? To the object of the sentence, the people. So those are the people who we showed the gallery to. In that case, I don't need the relative pronoun, and I can say those are the people we showed the gallery to. Now, just a quick reminder that, of course, who refers to people, which refers to things, where refers to a place, when refers to a time, and whose refers to possession. In other words, the artist whose paintings were displayed in that art gallery won an award. So whose paintings were displayed? The paintings belong to the artist. So whose is used for possession. We use who to identify people. For example, the artist who thought of this design is a genius. The artist who thought of this design. I cannot omit that. I cannot say the artist is a genius. Well, I can, but then we don't know what artist we're referring to. We use which to clarify things. The idea which the team thought about was brilliant. We use that to clarify things and people. So the designer that came up with this logo is a genius, or the idea that the team came up with is brilliant. Where is used to clarify place. So the building where I lived is downtown. The building where I lived is downtown. I cannot say the building is downtown. Well, I can, but then we don't know what building we're talking about. And when to clarify the day. So Mondays are the days when I film videos, or Mondays are the days when I meet with my accountant. Okay, so far so good. Comment below with a defining relative clause starting with the people. So you can write anything you like about any people you want, but make sure that you include a defining relative clause. Okay, Let's move on to non-defining relative clauses now. Remember that these are clauses that give us non-essential information about whatever we're talking about. And that means that non-defining relative clauses are extra information and they can be omitted from the sentence and the sentence will still make sense. And one thing we can remember about non-defining relative clauses is that they're usually separated from the sentence with commas. So the clause will be inserted in the sentence and separated with commas, or it might come at the end of the sentence, but it will be separated with a comma, and then the end of the sentence will be indicated with a full stop. For example, the client who collects fine art is keen to see our ideas. These paintings, which belong to our client, are true masterpieces. So in these cases, I can say the client is keen to see our ideas, and who collects fine art is extra. We can just say the client is keen to see our ideas. But if we say the client who collects fine art is keen to see our ideas, then I'm giving you two pieces of information. The first is that the client wants to hear our ideas, and the second is that the client collects fine art. In the other example, these paintings which belong to our client are true masterpieces. I can say these paintings are true masterpieces, and you can understand that perfectly well. I'm indicating what paintings I'm talking about. But if I say these paintings which belong to the client are true masterpieces, then which belong to the client can be omitted from the sentence, and we can still understand that these paintings are true masterpieces. We use the same relative pronouns in non-defining relative clauses as we do in defining ones, except for that. We don't use that in non-defining relative clauses. And instead of that, because that refers to people or things, then in non-defining relative clauses, we use which or who. The client who collects fine art is keen to see our ideas, not the client that collects. Or our client collects fine art, which are true masterpieces, not our client collects fine art that are true masterpieces. Okay, our final type of relative clause is a reduced relative clause. Why is it called a reduced relative clause? Because in this case, we will not be using relative pronouns. And instead of the relative pronoun, we use an ing form of the verb or a past participle form of the verb, depending on whether the sentence is active or passive. Let me break it down for you, because even I am going, what? Okay, so here's how it works. So we use the ing form of the verb when the clause is active. For example, visitors who arrive early will park over there. Visitors who arrive early. Who arrive early is active. We're talking about visitors who perform the action. Visitors who arrive early will park over there. In this case, instead of who arrive, we can omit the who and use the verb in the ing form. So visitors arriving early will park over there. And we use the past participle form of the verb when the clause is in the passive form. For example, some of the paintings which are displayed in the gallery aren't very good. Which are displayed is the passive form. It's not that the paintings display anything. The paintings are the object. They are displayed. And so in this case, we can omit which are and just use the past participle form of the verb display. So some of the paintings displayed in the gallery aren't very good. And the final thing to know about these reduced relative clauses is that we can only reduce clauses when they are the subject of the sentence, not when they are the object. Visitors who arrive early, visitors arriving early. We're talking about the visitors. The visitors are the subject. Or the paintings displayed in the gallery. The paintings are the subject, although they are the subject in the passive form. Okay, hope you found that helpful. Remember to like this video if you found it useful in any way. And also remember to download my free guide. It's called 8 Steps to Revolutionizing Your English. And you can just pick that up and implement it straight away in order to start shifting the way in which you acquire and use English. Also, many people approach me and say, Tanya, you know what? I'd love to have a platform or a place where I can just practice my English. It's so difficult to find a place where I can practice English, especially because I don't live in an English-speaking country. Well, if that's you, then please make sure you contact me if you're looking for a supportive community, if you're looking for coaching in English, if you're looking for a step-by-step guide to help you make progress with your English, then I'll leave a link for you to contact me below in the description box. So that's it from me for today, but I'll see you in the next one. Take very good care until then. Bye for now.